Good morning. Thank you for joining me in this morning mindfulness practice. The more I study, the more I realize that this is a vibrational world, and the better we feel, the better life is. It's not the other way around. We don't look at things and say, oh, this is beautiful, this is great, this makes me feel so good. Nothing can make you feel good or bad, but your thinking makes it that way. So if you want a better life, a better world, a better feeling, it starts inside of you. Each one of us has the ability to make our lives better by feeling better first, and then we attract what we want. It's backwards to what we've been taught. It's backwards to what we've been programmed to believe. And I want to ask you to suspend disbelief or to turn your beliefs upside down for a little while and think about what if that's really true, that you focus on feeling good about yourself and then good things come about. Good things happen to you. Good things happen for you. And nothing is good or bad, but our thinking makes it so. You and I can be in the same place at the same time and have completely different interpretations about whether a situation is good or bad. And oftentimes, sometimes the worst thing that we think could possibly happen actually turns out to be the best thing. Maybe it's a divorce. Maybe it's a job loss. Maybe it's a fire. Sometimes the universe comes in and sweeps out of your life the current situation so that something better, something that's really meant for you, can come along and take its place. We live day to day automatically, doing the same things, thinking the same thoughts, feeling the same way. But if you learn that you can train yourself to think better thoughts and to feel better, and then notice how much better your life is. You become better when you start to think better thoughts and feel better feelings. That's the law of attraction, the law of transmutation of energy. Like energy attracts more of the same. Have you ever noticed when you're really stressed and miserable, everything goes wrong? More things come at you? Try an experiment and see if the better you feel, the better you feel, the better you feel, the better life gets. The better you feel, the better thoughts you think, and the better thoughts you think, the better you feel. Just try it as an experiment. I'm going to read some pretty deep material from Neville Goddard. I have a little book, The Power of Awareness, and it includes awakened imagination. And there's a chapter called Sealed Instructions. Neville Goddard says, "What a comfort it is to know that all that I experience is the result of my own standard of beliefs, that I am the center of my own web of circumstances, and that as I change, so must my outer world." Well, I'm going to tell you a little bit about Neville Goddard. You're going to notice that the language is quite flowery because He was born in 1905 to an English family in Barbados. And Neville Goddard moved to New York City when he was 17 years old to study theater. But in 1932, he abandoned his work as a dancer and an actor to fully devote himself to metaphysical. He had a career as a metaphysical writer and lecturer, and he became one of the 20th century's most original and charismatic purveyors of the philosophy generally called New Thought. Neville Goddard wrote 10 books, and I'm going to continue to read from Sealed Instructions from Awakened Imagination. And I want you to think about this. What a comfort it is to know that all that I experience is the result of my own standard of beliefs, that I am the center of my own web of circumstances, and that as I change, so must my outer world. The world presents different appearances according as our states of consciousness differ. What we see when we are identified with a state cannot be seen when we are no longer fused with it. By state is meant all that a man believes and consents to as true. Now, of course, this was written in 1954, so when he says man, I'm going to change it to mankind or human, because it applies to every gender, every person, every person who thinks. By a state is meant all that a human believes and consents to as true. You can be in a state of being angry. When you're in a state of being joyful, you're not thinking anything near anger or resentment or jealousy. When you're in a state of anger, it takes a while to diffuse that state and think of something beautiful and wonderful, and how can this world be so beautiful and perfect? So Neville says, no idea presented to the mind can realize itself unless the mind accepts it. It depends on the acceptance, the state with which we are identified, how things present themselves. In the fusion of imagination and states is to be found the shaping of the world as it seems. The world is a revelation of the states with which imagination is fused. It is the state from which we think that determines the objective world that we live in. I'm going to say that again. It is the state from which we think that determines the objective world in which we live. The world in which we live is a reflection of the state by which you view the world, how you imagine it, what you think about it, how you feel about it. Isn't that backwards to what we automatically have been programmed to believe? If I am in a state of feeling love and joy and happiness, I will see things that represent that. My subconscious mind is going to look for the evidence to support that. And when I'm in a state of anger and resentment, you can bet everything is showing up that proves this is a terrible world, and no wonder I'm angry and resentful. It is the state from which we think that determines the objective world in which we live. Neville goes on to say, the rich man, the poor man, the good man, the thief are what they are by the virtues of the states from which they view the world. On the distinction between these states depends the distinction between the worlds of these men. Individually, so different is this same world. It is not the actions and behavior of the good man that should be matched, but his point of view. Not the behavior and the actions of the good man that should be matched, but his point of view. So to me, that means it doesn't matter if I act, if I behave, if I do the same things of a person who I want to be like. It doesn't matter if I copy their behavior, but what is their point of view? What is their state of being? It's from that state of being that my behavior changes and the world reflects how I'm thinking, how I'm feeling, what I'm doing. I want love. I better show love. I want to be happy. Well, be happy. And from that state of being, the world becomes a happy place. Neville says outer reforms are useless if the inner state is not changed. Success is gained not by imitating the outer actions of the successful, but by right inner actions and inner talking. What am I saying to myself all day long? If I want to live in a wonderful, prosperous world, I better not be saying, oh, you stupid idiot, you did that again. I better be saying, wow, thank you, thank you, thank you. I love my life. Life loves me. What are you saying to yourself? What thoughts are rolling around your head all day long? Start to notice what you're saying to yourself. Start to say what you want and watch it come to you. Neville says if we detach ourselves from a state, and we may at any moment, the conditions and circumstances to which that union gave being vanish. The circumstances and conditions to which that union gave being vanish. So the state that you are being starts to show you what you're thinking, what the state you're being is. It's reflected in your results, in your outcomes, in your life, in your experiences. I'm going to read this little story that Bob Proctor used to talk about all the time. It's Neville's story about how he ended up going back to Barbados for Christmas. It was in the fall of 1993 in New York City. Neville says that I approached Abdullah with a problem. He asked me one simple question. What do you want? And I want you to think of that and pretend, whether it's climbing Mount Everest or being on a beautiful beach or living with your love, doing your purposeful work, whatever you want, I want you to imagine what Abdullah is telling Neville. What do you want? I told him that I would like to spend the winter in Barbados, but that I was broke. I literally did not have a nickel. If you will imagine yourself to be in Barbados, he said, thinking and viewing the world from that state of consciousness, instead of thinking of Barbados, you will spend the winter there. You must not concern yourself with the ways and means of getting there, for the state of consciousness of already being in Barbados, if occupied by your imagination, will devise the means best suited to realize itself. Man lives by committing himself to invisible states, by fusing his imagination with what he knows to be other than himself. And in this union, he experiences the result of that fusion. No one can lose what he has, save by detachment from the state where the things experienced have their natural life. You must imagine yourself right into the state of your fulfilled desire, Abdullah told me, and fall asleep viewing the world from Barbados. The world which we describe from observation must be as we describe it in relative to ourselves. Our imagination connects us with the state desired, but we must use imagination masterfully, not as the onlooker thinking of the end, but as a partaker thinking from the end. We must actually be there in imagination. If we do this, our subjective experience will be realized objectively. What he's saying is, if we think from the end, from what we really want, from being in Barbados or Hawaii or the ivory tower, the penthouse suite, the little cottage at the stream, wherever you want to be, if you start thinking from already being there, actually being there in your imagination, then things will start to manifest so that your outside world, your subjective experience, what you're thinking of in your mind, will actually come to pass. It will be your reality. It will be realized objectively. You will bring it from a state of imagining to being your physical experience. This is not mere fancy, he said, but a truth you can prove by experience. His appeal to enter into the wish fulfilled was the secret of thinking from the end. Every state is already there as mere possibility, as long as you think of it. But it is overpoweringly real when you think from it. Thinking from the end is the way of Christ. I began right there and then fixing my thoughts beyond the limits of sense, beyond the aspect to which my present state gave being, towards the feeling of being in Barbados and viewing the world from that standpoint. So he says he fixed his thoughts beyond the limits of sense. That means you have to shut down your sensory perceptions, your what you see, hear, smell, taste, and touch. You have to block out the current reality and start to view the world from your beautiful goal, the outcome that you want, the results that you want to experience in your life. If you have a goal, what is your target? What do you really want? Thinking from that place, there is a place. So what would it feel like when you're there? Abdullah emphasized the importance of the state from which mankind views the world as he falls asleep. All prophets claim that the voice of God is chiefly heard by man in dreams. In Job 33:15-16, he quotes, "In a dream, in a vision of the night, when deep sleep falleth upon men, in slumberings upon the bed, then he openeth the ears of men and sealeth their instructions." Neville goes on to say, "That night, and for several nights thereafter, I fell asleep in the assumption that I was in my father's house in Barbados. Within a month, I received a letter from my brother saying that he had a strong desire to have the family together at Christmas and asked me to use the enclosed steamship ticket for Barbados. I sailed 2 days after I received my brother's letter, and I spent a wonderful winter in Barbados. This experience has convinced me that man can be anything he pleases if he will make the conception habitual and think from the end. It has also shown me that I can no longer excuse myself by placing the blame on the world of external things, that my good and my evil have no dependency except from myself, that it depends on the state from which I view the world, how things present themselves. Mankind, who is free in his choice, acts from conceptions which he freely, though not always wisely, chooses. All conceivable states are awaiting our choice and occupancy, but no amount of rationalizing will of itself yield us the state of consciousness, which is the only thing worth having. The imaginative image is the only thing to seek. The ultimate purpose of imagination is to create in us the Spirit of Jesus, which is continual forgiveness of sin, continual identification of mankind with his ideal. Only by identifying ourselves with our aim can we forgive ourselves for having missed it. All else is labor in vain. On this path to whatever place or state we convey our imagination to, that place or state, we will gravitate physically also. Another quote from the Bible, John 14:2, says, "In my Father's house are many mansions. If it were not so, I would not have told you. I go to prepare a place for you. And if I go and prepare a place for you, I will come again and receive you unto myself, that where I am, there ye be also." By sleeping in my Father's house in my imagination, as though I slept there in the flesh, I fused my imagination with that state and was compelled to experience that state in the flesh also. So vivid was this state to me that I could have been seen in my Father's house had any sensitive entered the room where in imagination I was sleeping. A person can be seen where in his imagination he is, for a human must be where in imagination he is, for his imagination is himself. This I know from experience, for I have been seen by a few to whom I desired to be seen when physically I was hundreds of miles away. So what he's saying is, if you just Sit quietly and imagine a loved one. They could be dead. They could be in the next room. They could be across the world. They could be in a city a few hours away from you. When you think of them in your imagination, you can feel who they are, what they look like. You know what your loved one is. And when you imagine them, they come into your thinking, into your experience. You can feel as if you're with them. Neville says, I, by the intensity of my imagination and feeling, imagining and feeling myself to be in Barbados instead of merely thinking of Barbados, had spanned the vast Atlantic to influence my brother into desiring my presence to complete the family circle at Christmas. Thinking from the end, from the feeling of my wish fulfilled, was the source of everything that happened as outer cause, such as my brother's impulse to send me a steamship ticket, and it was also the cause of everything that appeared as results. Neville Goddard spent so much time going to sleep every night, pretending that he was sleeping in his father's house in Barbados, and he felt it. He dwelt there. He imagined it. He felt it. He believed it. He went to sleep every night believing that he was sleeping in his father's house in Barbados. And the way appeared. A steamship ticket came in the mail from his brother who lived in Barbados, and he took the ship and arrived in Barbados and spent Christmas and the rest of the winter truly being in his father's house in Barbados. That's how it works. You have to see it in your imagination. You have to feel it so deeply that you are already there. Are you celebrating? What are you expecting? Believe that it is yours. Capture it on paper. Write it down. I am so happy and grateful now that. And write what you want to experience in the present tense as if it's happening. I am so happy and grateful to be spending Christmas with my family in Barbados. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I am so happy and grateful. I am prosperous. I am loved. I am with my family. I am happy. I am joyful. Express your feeling as if it's already done. Write it out. Go to sleep tonight, being there, in that state of being there. There is a place. There is your wish fulfilled. There is your goal already attained. What results do you want? Write it down. Get into that state of being. I promise you, the universe will do everything. The infinite will deliver to you all the resources, all the people, everything required for you to live that experience. Believe it and watch how quickly it happens. Thank you for being here in this morning mindfulness practice. Create a wonderful day. I'll see you back here tomorrow morning at 7. Thank you.